All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Nikita Patel, and I am Senior Director of Leadership Programs at the Newmark J School at CUNY. Today, we're here having a fun open house since we want to share information about our program since the application deadline is fast approaching. And I'm thrilled to be joined today by my former colleague, my friend, and just an amazing person in general, Cynthia DeBose from McClatchy. So Cynthia will be sharing her experiences in the program, will be sharing her capstone project, and fun fact, we're both coming to you live from Atlanta. So many moons ago, we used to work at the AJC, and I love that like our careers and our lives have just kept intersecting in wonderful ways over the years. So you'll be hearing from Cynthia shortly. So I'm going to share my screen. All righty. And obviously, the purpose of this open house today is to discuss CUNY's executive program in news, innovation, and leadership. So in terms of being innovative, this is why we are using LinkedIn Live today. So this is our first time experimenting with this platform, and we figured it would be fun, and we'll learn a lot through innovation and experimentation along the way. So without further ado, I'll get going. So again, this is our second open house since we are in the applications phase of the News, Innovation and Leadership program at CUNY. And we'll be hearing more from Cynthia DeBose shortly. So in terms of this program was created about 3 years ago by my predecessor, Anita Zialina and Jeff Jarvis at CUNY. It was created to basically ensure that there are news leaders who can meet this moment today. Leaders in newsrooms, it's critical to be able to drive transformation, build successful products, and innovate on the business side. I can't stress the last point immediately enough. In terms of doing research, when sort of formulating this program, Jeff and Anita spoke to, 90, more than 90 global leaders in newsrooms around the world. And the needs that they were hearing really helped inform the curriculum, the way in which the program is designed, the sort of cohorts that we seek to have. They heard a lot of great feedback from these news executives about having folks that have bridge roles, right, that can work on innovative products, that are thinking about leadership in really smart ways, that are thinking of DEI-B with belonging, right, as we think about talent pipelines and just really having diverse candidates and diverse leaders, and folks that are really versed in the business side of journalism too. The mission of this program is to be able to equip diverse leaders with skills, knowledge, and the network necessary to lead transformation of the news business. The thing I love the most about this program is that our training sits at the intersection of editorial, business, technology, and product, so that when folks take this program, they are actually well-versed in all of these critical areas. So in terms of the nuts and bolts of our program, it is a one-year hybrid program. So you can participate from anywhere in the world, which I love, which again is why I'm coming to you live from Atlanta today. And luckily I do get to go to New York City and hang out at the J School, especially when we have our residencies. So the way this program works is that there are weekly Zoom classes, and then these residencies are 3 different week-long stints. And I'll show you a timeline in a future slide here where we talk about what that means and what that looks like. But basically, each cohort, we'd like to have about 20 different leaders from around the world to represent, all different sort of gender expressions, types of newsroom. Diversity is so incredibly important for us within our sort of cohort, but then also the instructors that we'd like to bring in. And as I mentioned, we tend to focus in on editorial, product, technology, and business. So for any of these sort of functions within newsrooms will have such a holistic 360 training throughout this program. In addition to classes and workshops, when we do have those in-person residencies in New York, we do have newsroom visits, we have fireside chats. We also like to plan social activities so that the cohort likes to feel like they're bonding. And the great thing about this program, as I mentioned, with it being a year long, everybody gets a coach, and having an executive coach for the year is just an incredible resource as people are working on their capstone project. So in order to get a certificate of completion, everybody has to deliver a capstone project. And that's why we pair folks with an executive coach to spend the year working on this too. So here's a snapshot at our syllabus. And this is one of the reasons why I love this program, and I think it's so unique and special, is that it truly is a journalism MBA. It is the next best thing to an MBA specifically for news executives. So as you can see, we have a number of classes focused on the business of journalism, where we do deep dives into revenue models. We talk about business development tactics. We have really amazing finance classes too. That is something I know that Cynthia will hopefully touch on when we chat soon too. We focus on technology, innovation, managing culture change, audience development, product development, strategy, team building, etc. And then we also host a series of workshops focused on career development, leading with resilience, managerial decision making, and it goes on. And then, as I mentioned, we have ongoing activities throughout the year. So everyone is expected to work on their capstone project throughout the year with their coach, and seeking other mentors within the CUNY network and beyond. There are many, many networking opportunities and events, company visits, as I mentioned. And then one of my favorite facets of the program is what we call leadership circles. So these are monthly leadership sessions where we really do deep dives into what it means to be a leader. Since managing and leading are actually two very distinct things, we'd like to really focus on the leadership aspect of things because our classes touch on management. So within leadership circles, we have amazing sessions where they tend to be workshop style, where we're talking about challenges and roadblocks and how you overcome them. We have a workshop based on when and how to say no. Unfortunately, as leaders, especially in newsrooms, sometimes you want to bless specific projects and fund them, but there are times when we can't do that, and when you have to say no, but still try and keep morale high within your newsroom. We also have had leadership circles about imposter syndrome, recognizing when you are experiencing that, or somebody within your newsroom, and how to lift them up and help build self-confidence as well. So what are participants expected to do? Participants are expected to join weekly classes, as I mentioned, on Zoom. They're just 2 hours once a week in terms of a time commitment. On occasion, we have pre-reads or a video to watch or a case study to dive into. So maybe that's an additional, let's say, hour or so of prep time. And then folks are expected to come to New York, as I mentioned, 3 times a year, just for a week at a time, and then complete and deliver a capstone project. And so we'll sort of get into what a capstone project is momentarily. Luckily, Cynthia will be sharing her capstone project, and we're very excited about that. And then the outcomes, basically, after you take the program, you then become a member of our alumni network, which after this cohort graduates will be about 60 incredible folks. And I'll have some slides to show you who's in these cohorts. But at the end of the program, folks will gain a thorough understanding of how to build and execute a product strategy. Folks will understand market forces out there when it comes to looking at various business models and thinking about new and different revenue streams and growth strategies. Folks will learn about having a data-centric approach when it comes to innovation and audience engagement. We go over a lot of different industry best practices. We talk about org structures, business innovation, revenue tactics. And as I mentioned, we really do lots of deep dives into leadership skills specifically when it comes to DEI and management. We also spend a lot of time talking about change management and transformation within newsrooms and culture building, which is incredibly important. And last but not least, folks that will go away from this program with long-lasting relationships with their cohort, with their coaches, with folks at Newmark J School, within the New York kind of media ecosystem, but then at large as well. So in terms of the cost, tuition is $27,000 a year. And this includes coaching, learning materials, and sort of networking events and whatnot. This does not include travel to New York and hotel and those kinds of expenses. So it's important to note that tuition is just for classes, coaching, learning materials, etc. However, the good news is we are able to offer scholarships thanks to generous support from some of our supporters of our program. So in some cases, we're able to offer full scholarships, in some cases, partial scholarships. And so depending on newsroom budgets as well for training and development, we can sort of get a little bit creative on how we help folks be able to experience the program, because we want to make our program accessible to everyone. That's the most important thing to me, is having a really amazing, well-rounded, diverse global cohort. And then we're able to kind of figure out ways in which we can make the tuition happen together. So as I mentioned, the timeline here is that the program starts in September in New York, September the 5th, right after Labor Day, and it goes through till the end of June in 2024. And those 3 residencies that I mentioned are week-long stints in New York at Newmark J School. So the first one is the beginning of September. Then we come together at the end of February, which is the midway point. And then at the very end in June for celebrations, graduation, final presentations. So that's a whole look at the entire timeline. And then here's a look at folks in the current cohort. So as you can see, we really focus in on having a cohort every single year that is diverse, that is made up of half women, half journalists of color, and then a nice balance between journalists in the US and globally too. We always like to have a 50-50 split between US representation and global news executives as well. Here is a look at last year's cohort, which you can see Cynthia here and folks like Sewell Chan, who were just absolutely incredible. And then the very first cohort, which we have folks like Kim Bowie, we have Stilly from the Daily Maverick, Lauren Berry from Bloomberg. So as you can see, we really like to have a wide range of diverse folks taking the program each year. And then let's get to applications. So applications are open right now until June the 2nd. So it's less than 2 weeks. So start thinking about the materials that you need to gather. And those include obviously your resume. We need folks to provide a letter of intent. And the letter basically just needs to be a 1-page memo style letter of why you want to take the program, what you hope to achieve from it, and how you plan to grow and develop as a news leader. And then we also require 2 letters of recommendation. So those could be from your current manager, those could be from peers, those could be from longtime friends in the industry, just basically 2 letters that vouch for you. And I should mention that we are actually starting to review applications now, just to be able to stay on our timeline. And we will also be starting to interview soon as well. So please do try to get your applications in ahead of June the 2nd. If you can, don't wait till the very last minute, the very last day. And we are then going to be starting to send out acceptance letters in June, late June and July. And then we will be announcing the next cohort in August. And as you saw for the previous timeline, we obviously kick off in September. So this is kind of the current timeline that we're in now. And if you want to know more about the program, you can obviously go to our website. Here's the link. We will drop this in the chat in LinkedIn as well. And then my email address. I have a very open door policy. If you'd love to talk to me one-on-one, we can absolutely set up time. My email address is nikita.patel@journalism.cuny.edu. Another quick thing to mention before we dive into Cynthia's capstone and her experiences in the program are our summer boost programs. So in July, my colleague Anita Zialina is hosting a transformation boost, which is a 3-day course in New York at Newmark J School. I will then be hosting one on audience development, and that's July 10th, 11th, and 12th, also in New York at Newmark J School. And my engagement boost is not going to be your sort of standard audience engagement workshop, there will be a lot of real talk about the state of platforms and audience engagement. And we have some really amazing speakers and instructors lined up for that. So if you have questions about that, don't hesitate to go to our website, find info, and reach out to me as well. So without further ado, I'm going to just spend a couple of minutes asking Cynthia a few questions first, and then we will have her present her capstone project. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okie dokie. All right, Cynthia. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. I love that, like, we're just mere miles apart, even though we're on Zoom here. Yeah, and I just have a few questions that I'd love to ask you. You know, first, like, as you were thinking about your sort of career journey, tell us why you decided to apply for the program.
So I feel like I've spent most of my career in digital. I started my career as a reporter, but digital has, I tell people like, oh, digital has always been my jam. And I felt like as I was progressing in my career, I needed to do something to be able to handle where I was, meaning that I was no longer a producer, which is a great first job, right? I was no longer a project manager. I was starting to get more into strategy, more into audience development, having more meetings, upper level meetings where I'm having to explain things at a higher level. And I felt like I needed something like I don't want to say I needed training, but I needed to feel more comfortable. That's actually what I think it was. I needed to feel comfortable being able to have those conversations, particularly the finance conversations, right? And so I saw this as an opportunity to be able to do that, to spend the year. So for us, the timeline was a little different, but and it ended up being, well, I guess it was like June to March, but to spend that time once a week. And then in the 2 weeks, we were in New York for 2 weeks at the end, really focus on myself and getting to a place where I felt like I was comfortable to have those higher level conversations, to turn the execution work into strategy conversations, financial conversations. And this program helped me do that.
I love that. And that leads me to my second question, which is, what are some of your favorite classes? And then what are some of your favorite moments in taking the program as well?
Yes. So, well, I already talked about the finance class. I don't know if that was a favorite, but it was needed. So I think that was a favorite because I walked away at least feeling like, okay, I feel comfortable. Like I feel like I can step into that conversation and not have to shirk back. For me, a lot of the program was about gaining confidence to be able to speak in those conversations and not second guess. You talked about imposter. We talked about that a lot. To be able to say, like, I know this, right? Like I'm a leader in this. I need to lend my voice to this conversation. I really like the managing through change. So I feel like if you are in media, especially in like local media, change is evident. I am someone who is comfortable with change. I realize I have a lot of colleagues who are not, but that class allowed me to deep dive and kind of look at frameworks and be able to say, okay, here's where we are. Here's where we are in change as a company. Here's where we are in this project. And I think one of my favorite moments was actually having a conversation about one of the frameworks and sending an article to my manager that then got shared in the C-suite that was all about, like, here's how you approach this. Here's why tension sometimes is not a bad thing. Here's why you lean into that. And here's what can come of that if you handle it right. And so I really felt like I walked away from those conversations, having a better handle, not just for myself, but to be able to walk colleagues and direct reports through change.
I absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I agree. I feel like I was initially drawn to this program myself because I am sort of a very editorial person. I was a web producer, then I was a product manager, then I really focused on audience development for a long, long time. And a lot of times when you're in this kind of role, you're not exposed to the financial side of things, just because, you know, and then when you are, it's sort of a little jarring. And so I love that we really focus in on these classes, finance fundamentals, and even just thinking about different revenue streams and business models, because it's so incredibly important. We've also seen that folks who are more on the business side, who have more of a business development background, appreciate the program because they get to learn more about editorial.
Yeah.
And we really talk about different types of storytelling, audience engagement and product development from that executive lens. And so that's why I love this program. It really is like a full sort of holistic training. And it's not only training, it's like the knowledge sharing and then the bonding with the cohort too, right? I'd love to kind of hear about, are you still in touch with folks from your cohort? Yeah.
So if you saw, right, I was not texting earlier. I was in my cohort. So we still have a WhatsApp group. And I was like, oh, let me make sure that like I don't have any notes, because I was like, hey, what should I say? So yes, we do. And it varies. Sometimes people are in there looking for things like, hey, anybody still have that document we did in class about product, or anyone have this? Sometimes, I mean, like New Year's, it was all pictures of us. Where was everyone? Like we do random, like, oh, look, I'm here, or oh, look, I'm there. So it has been amazing. We had a virtual baby shower earlier this year. So that part, I think when you ask about like, what was one of the best parts, was just getting to know that group, and to know that I now have like a lifelong group of it's almost like having advisors. We've had people in there like, what should I do? Like, I think I'm about to leave my job. Like, what's going on? And so that part has been great. And I think for us, we started the program virtual. So we had all of this build up to these 2 weeks. And then for a while, because of COVID, are we coming in person? We might not come. And so to be able to end our class and our time together for 2 weeks in New York was amazing.
I love that. That brings me so much joy. And we try to foster a lot of like connections within the different cohorts as well. Like when there's events like hopefully at ONA, we'll be getting together and doing a happy hour and bringing folks from the program together as well. And I know that there was a little contingent of folks who went to the journalism festival in Perugia. I think they had gotten together and stuff. And we absolutely love that, right? Like people not only like meeting up, but then also planning sessions and like doing activities together, because again, you're in person and you have built that rapport in time. And so I think that's really special. So I just have one final question for you. And then if folks who have joined us, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments on LinkedIn, and then we will answer those questions over here. But so finally for me, Cynthia, I'd really just love to know, what are some of your key takeaways from taking the program?
Oh boy, Nikita. That's a heavy one. So I think on a personal level, just you can do this. So I hope that there is someone watching this who was like me, who was like, there's no way I have time to go back to school, because you are going to school, right? Like I have kids, I have this, I have work. Invest in yourself. And I think that is the biggest takeaway that I could tell someone, is just invest in yourself and it will be worthwhile. And I think we're now a year removed, and I feel like I'm still reaping the benefit of having taken that time to invest in myself and to say, you know what, yes, I have all of these things, but if I don't invest in me, no one else will. And so I don't look at it as investing your career. And so we had a lot of career moves during and after in our cohort. And I think, is that a direct reflection of the program? Maybe, but it might be a direct reflection. And once you start going through these classes and you have that confidence, you look at things differently and you approach things differently, whether within the company you're at or whether personally. I mean, we had a few business owners, right? Like we have CEOs in our cohort or thinking differently about their company and taking those bold steps. And so I think we are all still reaping the benefit of that even a year later.
I love that. And I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Through the course of the program so far, it's been in existence for 3 years. We've seen, I think, 10 or more folks take on either promotions within their organization or go on to bigger roles and or different newsrooms, and even some that have started their own ventures
Yeah.
and things like that independently, right? And so that's the thing. I think this kind of program is perfect for like wherever you're at in sort of your leadership journey, then how can you level up, right? Whether whatever that path is, it's very different for individuals, right? And I think the thing you absolutely nailed too was saying invest in yourself. Like that's the one thing about this program. Yes, it is tied to your career. You know, we've all spent a long time in journalism. We deeply care about storytelling and audience engagement and whatnot, but like really taking the time to focus on yourself. That's the biggest point of feedback we get from members of each cohort too. They love like the weekly classes are an opportunity to unplug from their day-to-day, from family life, you know, whatever it might be, and really focus on their own learning, development, skills, and knowing that you're not alone in facing various challenges and obstacles. There's something that's very bonding about that too, right? And we've had some classes where people say it's almost like therapy, and I kind of love that, because it should be. We should be sharing things that affect us, and we should be openly discussing things, because then and then only can we create environments of empathy, right? And that to me is one of the biggest things that I'm trying to like to teach now in this program. Like we need news leaders to meet this moment, right? So
I also think it was really interesting across our cohort to see similarities in what people might face in the workplace, you know. And so we had folks from UK, and so as they're talking about, they were like, wait, what happened? Wait, oh, that happened to me, right? And so it's almost like what we discussed, and that empathy knows no bound of where you live, what you look like, even the industry. So we had some who were kind of in the business side of our industry who would say, this happened to me, or this is what I'm facing, or I had, you know, I'm reporting to somebody who doesn't get the vision, right? That happens across. And so it was really nice to forge those bonds, knowing that was, whether you're in news, whether you're in the newsroom, or whether you're on the business side or advertising, you know, some of the same things apply, and talking through how do we solve for that, and how do we tackle that challenge.
absolutely. And speaking of challenge, that segues nicely into talking about your capstone project. So let's have you go ahead and share your screen. And
Okay.
while you do that, then I will talk about what a capstone project is. So as I mentioned, everyone has to do a capstone project. And the great thing about them is that they are in no way, shape, or form like a dissertation, right? Like we do not expect anything at that scale, because we understand that everyone is working professionals, people are busy, you know, but what we do ask of a capstone project is that it is a either a problem or a challenge that folks see within their organization or within the news industry at large. And then the outcome of a capstone project is solutions to that, right? So that could take the form of any kind of format, really. It could be a business plan, it could be a case study, it could be an audience development plan, product, you know, roadmap. It could be sort of just focusing on a new and upcoming innovation within the industry too. And so these capstone projects are actually really awesome, really amazing, and quite fun. And these can actually be a resource not only for your own organization, but the whole industry as well. And so I find capstone projects really inspiring, and the current cohort is heads down working on theirs right now, and they will be doing final presentations at the end of June. That's actually going to be a Zoom event. And so please do look at our social channels and stuff like that, because anyone can sign up and join that. And it's really fun. I joined it too last year. So yeah, without further ado, let's have you talk about your capstone, Cynthia, what you did to focus in on why, how, and where things are at today.
Yeah. So Nikita, when you came to me, you were like, we want you to do your capstone. I'm like, oh my God, that I can't present that in current state, right? That was a year ago. And as I start to talk about my capstone, you all see why. So I was like, but wait, there's more. So we've already talked about all of this. I will tell anyone, I will talk about this CUNY executive leadership program all day. I continue to say it's changed my life in more ways than one. I am a New York native, so to be in New York for 2 weeks was amazing when we did the residency, but I live in Georgia now. I'm currently the SVP of Product and Experience for McClatchy. 2 years ago, so go back a bit to 2021, I was asked to do some research into the world of AI. And it afforded me some really great life lessons and opportunities and has introduced me to a new network. And of course, 2 years ago, I was also preparing to start this CUNY journey as part of the second cohort. And so as I started talking about my capstone, of course, I wouldn't pick AI because that would be way too easy, right? I started in one place. I was focused on subscriber retention. And with the help of my coach, Eric, who he's probably not watching this, but I believe it's still a coach, very quickly landed on AI because it was something that was current. It was something I was working on at the time. And it was something that just seemed a natural fit. I also continue to love talking about AI. So if I start talking really fast, either Nikita is giving me the wrap up or I'm just getting like super excited about AI. So let's back up a bit. So as I said, 2 years ago, my manager issued this challenge. So can we utilize AI to deliver additional content to our local audience? We were brainstorming during this time around topics that drove current audiences and how could we deliver more of that topic. And there were a lot of topics that were information that drove audience for us: real estate prices and sales, high school sports, restaurant inspections. And so we identified a gap. These were topics that our newsrooms did not have the manpower to cover at scale. Some newsrooms were covering it for sure, but again, not at scale. And nor should they be, because we didn't want our reporters tracking down real estate transactions or sports scores, because it meant there was less time focused on the journalism. During our executive program here at CUNY, we were studying the jobs to be done framework. And that framework looked at what job is our customer trying to get done. And those were jobs from the customer's perspective. So for us, our readers were trying to get information that used to be in actual print newspaper pages, community listings, resources. And that connection was no longer economically viable for us today in print, but we saw an opportunity to use generative AI to restore those opportunities in an economically viable way. So this is what we did. So this is a 2021. So, well, actually, this is a slide from my capstone last year. So we added a layer of information back to our offerings, and we used AI to do that. The offerings were not journalism, but they were community information. We launched 4 AI implementations at the end of 2021 across 7 markets. We looked at information we knew our readers were looking for. Again, those real estate trends, high school sports scores. We explored using AI to streamline newsroom processes. And so for real estate, we paired a newsroom editor with a vendor to train a bot to scrape real estate prices and create trend articles. Those articles were approved by an editor and then published directly to our site. For high school sports, we tested a vendor who used machine learning to publish short high school game summaries. For data visualization, we gave data URLs to a vendor who created embeddable visualizations. And then we also tested with a company that utilized AI to learn our social media audience and then leverage what they learned to improve how we posted. Those projects at that time, when I presented this in 2022, exceeded our expectations in growing reach. And we also saw that they were bringing unique visitors to our site. So my capstone. So my capstone was looking at all we had done, I would say in that past year, and creating a newsroom editor's guide to understanding AI. This was really thought of something that I did share, and I had a link, and Nikita, I can give the link to you if we want to post it again. But I interviewed editors. I talked not only to just our newsrooms, but other newsrooms, and really wanted to build something to allow newsrooms to think about how they could do this, even if they didn't have a whole bunch of money to do it. The goal of the guide was to really empower editors to ask the right questions, seek the right resources, and have a step-by-step plan of how they could bring AI into their newsrooms. When I was doing my interviews, one of the editors told me, like, I see AI doing something, but I don't know how it gets there. I don't know how much goes into it. And I wonder what else I could be doing with it. And so the goal of the guide was not to answer that, but to get them in a mindset and to get them on the road to being able to tackle that question. That guide had kind of 4 key pillars, if you will. It asked editors to explore their gaps, look at what job they were trying to solve or what tasks AI could help fill in their newsroom. It implored them to understand their capacity and culture. So this was a really important one, and one that we still continue to test now at McClatchy, which is, what can your newsroom handle? Is there an editor? Is there someone in the newsroom that can really help talk to the gap that exists, that can work with whoever is building your AI solution to explain why this is worth trying? It walked editors through how to socialize this experiment. For us, it was very important that we were transparent throughout the entire process. We held kickoff meetings in a participating newsroom. We answered all the questions. We pointed to examples so that reporters and editors could see what this would look like in their newsroom. And we started and continue to label all of our content with a bot byline. So we have a SAC-B bot. We have a News and Observer bot. We also had a footer that explained to our readers, here's how we produce this content. We also realized that for these experiments and tests and implementations to go well, you really needed a newsroom champion. You needed someone in the newsroom, an editor who could help not only lead the effort, but really serve as a liaison to the vendor, or even a journalist who was working on the project. They would mentor newsrooms as they came on board. They would be able to sit there and answer questions as reporters say, what is this? Is this, the biggest question we always got, is this going to take our job? And here's an editor to say, no, I'm looking at this copy. This is nowhere near the copy that you all produce. This is not journalism. And so the ideal champion for us became someone who was curious, data-driven, and fearless about stepping into this space. Another part of this capstone was to help look at goals and help determine what measurements should be explored to figure out if the project was successful. If you're looking for a new audience, we would measure unique visitors. If your goal was reach, measure page views. And so it really implored editors to think before they started down this path about what they were going to look at to know that this was successful. And lastly, it just asked everyone to think about this as an experiment, to know that this was not set in stone, that they can measure, make changes, and measure again. They could fail fast, they could learn, and they could move on. So that was the crux of my capstone about a year ago. And then 12 months later, AI, everything has changed, right? AI has become a buzzword, not just in our industry. Every time you get an email, you turn on the news, they're talking about how AI is going to change things. I still have hope that AI will help our newsrooms. The type of AI that we've been implementing, and I have one more slide to kind of show where we are now, is built on data as well as the skills of our editors who can train a bot to say, whenever you see this number go up, you need to say, prices rose, right? We're not right now, we're not looking at ChatGPT. We're not doing those type of things. We're really working to train a bot to help us produce additional information. There was an AP report released in March of last year that kind of looked at where local newsrooms were in AI. And that report said, despite some concerns about handing off of human work, there was strong support among local newsrooms for automating tasks that could free journalists for deeper reporting, streamline production, or enhance content monetization. And that's really where I think we are, and that's where I think AI can still help our local newsrooms. So back at McClatchy 12 months later, we continue to use AI in our news experiences. And as you can see now, the variety of ways in which we use it has definitely increased. We now use AI for on-site homepage personalization. We have scaled that social post. We use it for comment moderation. And when it comes to our initial real estate experiment, we have now increased that to include 10 markets, and not just the one type of content that we were producing, but we produce 3 types of informational content now around real estate: single sales, top lists, and trending. And we customize now what publishes in that content and when the content should publish. And again, that is all part of our training the bot, our learning what is working, what is not working, and being able to make changes as we go. We've also been able to produce new products around real estate. So having that additional information allows us now to have real estate newsletters, talking about various sections. And so we've really been able to expand that one AI implementation into many, many forms. We've also tested and are expanding on a hurricane bot, which is a bot that bases its data from the National Hurricane Center. And as they receive the latest updates on active storms that may impact one of our markets, they will publish a story. And newsrooms can pick the focus area and kind of define what is a target of interest. The story that I have up from Miami Herald was our first, what we call bot story, to reach #1 on our Parsley. And so as we look at like what's doing well across the site, all of a sudden that popped up and we were like, oh, the bot has like a trending article. But this was when there was a hurricane headed towards Miami, and it allowed the reporters in that newsroom to actually focus on evacuations. News people could use, right? Here's where there are still supplies. Here's where you need to go in case you have to evacuate. Here's this. And so it was really important. I'm getting a delivery. It was very important to be able to show, hey, this is how this is going to help the newsroom. You no longer need a reporter that sits there and refreshes National Hurricane Center. The bot will do that and publish a story about the hurricane path. I do want to add, for every success that you see on the screen, we have definitely had failures, right? We've had bots over publish into social media. We've had tests with high school sports that didn't deliver enough data to make those articles of value, but we've learned from them. And we're very fortunate that we continue to be asked, well, what else can you do? Or can you take what you learned from that failure and move it into a new project? So for me, the CUNY experience allowed me to fully embrace the uncertainties of our industry, because I fully know now that I have the foundation to creatively approach any challenge. And that's strategically, financially, cross-functionally. You know, we talked a lot about working across teams, working across different departments. And it allowed me to approach AI head on. At McClatchy, we continue to test, we continue to monitor and make changes as we see the need. But we also continue to see the power in being able to deliver additional information through AI to our markets. So I will stop sharing because I can't see anybody. Okay, now I can see Nikita again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Cynthia. First, that was just fascinating, right? Sort of like the whole journey of like your capstone and then where things are at today. And I think recognizing that you've had lots of experimentation, lots of innovation, but then recognizing when things haven't worked so well and what you can learn from that and how you can improve things, right? I think that's just so incredible. So we really appreciate you sharing your presentation and sharing those insights with us. We have a couple of questions that came in the chat, so maybe we can spend a few minutes diving into those.
Sure.
So yeah, so I see a question here from Pius for you, Cynthia. It says, how has, and you've touched on some of this before, but I think it's just always great to reiterate things, but how has this program transformed you as a news leader? Would you have been worse off had you not taken the program? And what is the one thing that you think has really impacted your career that you would not have gotten anywhere else?
Pious, coming in hot. So I'll take the middle one first. I don't think I would have been worse off, but I tell you, I think I would have been stagnant. So if you consider stagnant to be worse off, then yes, because I think that I would have, listen, even in the AI, I mean, it literally was a parallel track for me. And I feel like I was really lucky in that like I'm working on something that very few people had done, right? But also something where I felt like I had to keep pushing internally, like we're gonna do this, we're gonna test it. And I think it would have been really easy, Pius, to do this the old way, which for me would have just been like, okay, we tested it. Thank you. And as I'm sitting in classes and hearing about transformation, change, it's not going to be easy. Here's how you approach this from the finances. So one of the first projects or homeworks, I'll say homeworks because it's not like you had to do it, right? Was to test some of the financial models on something we were working on. And wow, I had a real live, case here. And so it allowed me to go in and go to finance and say, hey, I'm looking for these numbers. I'm trying to, work on my homework. I'm in this project. And so, I don't think I would have been worse off, but I don't think I would have approached this project cross-functionally. I would not have approached it from financially. I wouldn't have approached it strategically and thinking about what else can we do. I don't think I would have been, my head would not have been in that place. Did I answer all his questions, Nikita?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then from my perspective, in terms of how the program transformed you, you mentioned that confidence, having the confidence, right, to be in these top level discussions and having the knowledge to be confident in these conversations when you're talking about business solutions or product plans and experimentation. That to me, I absolutely love, right? And we see that in this current cohort as well, where people feel so empowered because they now have knowledge, and it's also okay to admit the unknowns, right, as you're going into something, and then being able to like implement new frameworks and things they've learned, different tactics, strategies, sometimes really small things, sometimes really big things, and seeing the immediate impact there. So so next question that we have is from Michael, and I think this is a really interesting question. He's basically asking sort of, how were you able to navigate things at McClatchy in terms of getting the buy-in, the support in order to do this program, especially given tuition is a high price tag, and and being able to convince them about sort of like time commitment and stuff like that.
Oh, so that's, I never got the time commitment question, because I think I was just like, I'm gonna do this. You should definitely think about that though, about the time commitment. Because for me, it just meant setting aside time a little bit every weekend to make sure I was up on the assignments. But my internal conversations very much focused around my professional development. You asked me about kind of what decided on the program, and I hadn't shared with the company, but I had been thinking like, should I get an MBA? Like, how will I know how to, answer this? And that was kind of when Anita and Jeff came along. It was like, hey, we have this program, and so I was like, oh, this actually might be better because it's in my field, right? Like I didn't see myself necessarily leaving media. And so here was a program in my field that I felt would give me I won't say the same because I know people work very hard for their MBAs, but would give me the confidence in some of those areas, which is what I was seeking. So I approached it as professional development. I did approach it. I didn't have to convince them, but I did go in with saying kind of, here is where I see what I'll be able to do. And it was at a time where the company was talking about transformation, right? And so I was able to say, I think this will helped me be a part of our larger transformation.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. All right. And I see one more question here from Camille. So Camille says, she loves that you shared international members of the cohort, information about that. Did your peers from abroad find it difficult to follow the course? And do you think that they benefited as much as you did? So before you answer that, I want to just jump in there too, to say that the fact that our cohorts are very international is one of my favorite things about this program. Obviously, so I'm from London. I was born and raised in London, and now I've lived in the US for a long time. And I love the fact that like each cohort is split down the middle between like US and then global folks, because I think there's so much we can all learn from each other. And just hearing about different experiments that different newsrooms are working on, different projects, and then the range of media too. I love, like we have right now, this incredible leader from public radio in Bosnia. We have an Indian entrepreneur that's launched a hyper-local news venture, you know, out there. And like the fact that we're able to talk about business models and audience growth and things like that, to me makes the experience much more richer in terms of learning and knowledge sharing and stuff. And so the other thing I'll say is that tons of folks that take the program, like they do need to have some basic knowledge and understanding of English to obviously get the most out of the program. However, what we're seeing is a lot of them are using tools like AI and whatnot when it comes to some of that language translation work and things. So that's actually incredibly smart and innovative too, right? So we have not found that it's a barrier to entry from our perspective. But Cynthia, I would love to hear what you think about the fact that our cohorts are very international, and if you think that they had any troubles or anything.
I don't think that they had any more trouble than some of us. I mean, for us, I think at the beginning there was a lot of reading. I think you all have changed that a bit.
Yeah.
But I think they did benefit as much, right? And the moves, like I was talking about, you know, watching people move and change jobs throughout the cohort, that hasn't just been a US thing, right? I mean, that was happening with my peers from abroad too. And it's like, oh, you know, they got something out of this that kind of prompted them to either go for it or to make that move or to be more confident where they received a promotion. So I don't think they found it difficult. Our conversations were always, I would say, lively. And again, part of that was because of the conversation around, oh, is that how it is? Okay, well, that's how it is in America. Well, listen to what we're dealing with here, or here's what's going on here. And so I think I'm a better person because of that too. Like, I don't think it was difficult for them, but I think it helped those of us from the US because we always think about media in our little US box, and there's a lot going on internationally that far surpasses anything that we're doing here. So the last thing I'll say is that it also now allows for us to plan trips. So I haven't gotten to UK yet, but I'm like, okay, I'm coming. Okay, when are we coming? Like, when are we gonna have a reunion? So that also has been nice to have those options.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what we see, different members of the cohort, as I mentioned, meeting up at different events and conferences and things globally and hanging out and even working on partnerships, quite frankly, between organizations and or sourcing like references in terms of hiring. Like, we want to hire this journalist, incredible, you know, rising leader in Ukraine. Like, what's their background like? Can you vouch for them? And things like that. And when we see that it's just also just brings us so much joy, because as a growing alumni becomes even more global and international and interesting, and to just track what folks are doing and how they're working together, yeah, is incredible. So yeah, all right, well, if there are no further questions, I think we will wrap things up. But yeah, I just want to reiterate to everyone who's joined us today, if you have any questions or thoughts about the program, don't hesitate to go to our website, just Google Newmark J School, click on J+, and then you'll see information about the executive program front and center there. The application deadline is June the 2nd. So if you have questions, thoughts, our various email addresses are on the website too. Mine is nikita.patel@journalism.cuny.edu. And I want to just say a big thank you to Cynthia for joining us today. You are just a source of inspiration. And I love that you've taken the program and that you still find it so incredibly useful. And, you know, just keep crushing it.
You too.
Oh, thank you so much, my friend. All right. Thank you, everyone. And see you on social, on the web, in our inboxes. Take care and have a nice day.
Thanks.
Thank you.